Hello and welcome to the Lit channel. I'm Alicia, the expert of all plays. Okay, not all, but the expert of this play at least. We'll be discussing The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. What is in a title? Would a play by any other title smell as sweet? Never! The title is a play. It's the significance of...
Hold on, I got this. The dictionary definition of earnest is serious in intention, purpose, or effort, and also showing depth and sincerity of feeling. However, earnest, spelled without an A, is also used as a name. The title introduces the main conflict of the play, and it is also the first of many instances where wordplay is involved. Without knowing the spelling of earnest, the title gives the impression that the play will be like a fable or have some kind of moral lesson. This can also clue the reader into the farcical nature of the work, or at least to not read too literally into the play.
Well, okay then. Anyway, moving on. Oscar Wilde was born in October 1854, born and raised in Dublin, and settled in London sometime during adulthood. He was into aestheticism, the concept of beauty, and was involved in many literary activities before he was able to write his successful play, this one. With his background of living in London during the mid to late 1800s, was beneficial for him to know London's social norms in terms of marriage. Without such background, he wouldn't have been able to create his play that tends to be satire towards those marriage norms in that era. Now onto the plot. Shall we have my assistant do some live action for us? But how do I do it with no costume? That's easy. But there's no setting. But I don't even look white. Sorry about that. Let's just stick to drawings. There's these two guy friends, Algernon Moncrief, a playful dude that isn't serious, and John Worthing, who goes by the name of Jack. Jack, who is from the country, made a fake profile of himself called Ernest so he could hang out in the city, and made his real self, Jack, as his country brother, whom he doesn't get along with. Jack/Ernest uses this fake city boy image to be able to not only go to Algernon's house, but to also flirt with Algernon's cousin, Gwendolyn. And yeah, they both flirt and like each other for a while. And Jack proposes to her as Ernest. They become engaged, and Gwendolyn mentions how entranced she is with the name Ernest. Gwendolyn's mom, Lady Bracknell, who is also referred to as Aunt Augusta, freaks out when the random engagement of her daughter occurs and does an emergency interview with Jack. Lady Bracknell asks about details such as Jack's age and income. She zeroes in, however, on Jack's family background. Jack reveals that, as a baby, he was found in a black leather handbag left behind in a cloakroom at Victoria Station by the late Mr. Thomas Cardew. Lady Bracknell immediately refuses to allow her daughter to marry into a cloakroom and sweeps out in majestic indignation. Before all of that cheesy stereotypical drama happened, though, Algernon confronts Jack with a cigarette case that Jack forgot some time ago. The inside mentions how it was given to Uncle Jack from Cicely.
So, who's this Cicely chick, eh? My aunt. Then why does she call you uncle? Okay, well she's my ward.
Later, Algernon secretly decides to meet Cicely, posing as Uncle Jack's city brother, Ernest, to flirt with Cicely. His excuse to his city friends is that his friend Bunbury has once again fallen ill. This friend of his has the habit of silly-sallying between life and death in the most unfortunate times, meaning that Algernon must be excused from stifling dinner parties with strange, boring women who disgracefully flirt only with their husbands.
I want to meet this Cicely Cardew. I'll just pretend to be her Uncle Jack's city bro.
Algernon and Cicely get engaged straight away, and Algernon loves Cicely even though she was really creepy by technically being engaged to him even though she never met him. This is a slight hint of Oscar Wilde's aestheticism because obviously Algernon's just marrying Cecily for her appearance. Because I mean, why else is he gonna marry this creepy girl that has this imaginary romantic past with a person that she has never even met?
Ugh! I hate learning German!
Cecily, Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Want this flower?
No, I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you, Cecily, are like a pink rose.
But of course Uncle Jack comes to his country home early and finds Algernon there. Jack is extremely annoyed at Algernon's actions, and they come to an agreement that if Jack changes his clothes, Algernon will leave. Jack goes to the house and Algernon goes to find Cecily and proposes to her despite the fact that they just met that day.
Oh, silly boy, of course I'll marry you. We've been engaged for the last 3 months, ever since Uncle Jack told us about you. And there's these letters I technically wrote, but you gave me. And look at this engagement ring I bought, but you gave me. And I called off the engagement, but then I forgave you a week later. I've always wanted to love a man named Ernest.
Oh, would you love me if I had a different name? Like Algernon, per se?
I don't like the name Algernon. If you were Algernon, I wouldn't love you.
Oh, I see. Well, I must go to the church at once, regarding a most important christening.
And then later, Gwendolyn and Cecily both meet each other at Uncle Jack's house. And first they act like sisters and all friendly and stuff, but then later they end up hating each other because they're both engaged to an Ernest Worthing.
Tea with or without sugar? No sugar.
A sugar, yes please. Won't you come and put it down on me? No.
Not that they had dump trucks back then, but I mean...
Cake or bread with butter? Bread with butter. You dare insult me?
But then the girls both find out that neither of their fiancés were Ernest Worthing. They were fighting not long ago, but now... The irony, the irony. Despite the disappointing predicament, the girls forgave their fiancés pretty much minutes later.
Lady Bracknell.
The four explain, especially Jack. Eventually, after talking it out, Lady Bracknell is sort of okay with the situation, but does an emergency interview with Cecily first, only approving of her after finding out of her good financial situation, despite her claim of being against marrying for money. Well, at least we know she's a carrying aunt. During this whole talk about the situation and such, Lady Bracknell finds out that Cecily's teacher is Miss Prism, who Lady Bracknell knows and summons her. Knowing about Jack's background of being adopted when interviewing him in the past, she confronts Miss Prism about losing a baby in a black bag years ago, which was how Jack was found as an infant. And then, plot twist, Jack is actually Miss Prism's son, Algernon's brother, and was actually named Ernest after all.
At last! At last! I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.
Gotta love 19th century puns. Get it? Ernest? Ernest? Because his name is Ernest and he's being earnest. Okay. So anyway, the theme of the play can be interpreted in multiple ways, but generally, mainly, honesty is the best policy, specifically, be earnest, or basically, don't try to lead a double life like Superman, because you're not going to be able to do it! Unless you are not into that theme, there is another theme of how the marriage in the Victorian era was a shallow, convenient institution in which they were far too concerned with status and appearance. For instance, Lady Bracknell not wanting her daughter to marry into a cloakroom, Lady Bracknell's strong interest in financial base of people, Cecily's disdain for sensible men, and also the girls' extreme attitudes towards their fiancés. Paradox people.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel that you are sure to change.
Gwendolyn and Jack treat the inadvertent truth-telling as something to be looked down upon, or a blemish on one's character. This is a final satirization of Victorian society. specifically the acceptance of deception for the sake of keeping up a facade.
Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, in England at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square.
This quote emphasizes the presence of the aristocracy in the Victorian era, but especially the tenuous rule that the upper class held over the proletariat. This hold is maintained only by the lack of collective education, giving life to the aphorism that knowledge is power.
Okay, we're done now. The title is to play and serve some significance to.
Hold on, I got this.
Why are you hiding?
Peekaboo. Oh. I feel like looking now. I shouldn't do that. Plane has landed safely. I mean the boat. Crap,
Plane.
The boat has landed safely.
Boats land?
I don't even know what you're called. Oh.